This episode is brought to you by the Roxbury Urban Dive Bar, located at 1743 Grafton Street, right on the corner there of Grafton, right across from the Scotiabank Center. Make sure to hit up Roxbury before a Moosehead game. You'll get a lot cheaper drinks, cheaper food than what you'll pay in there at the Scotiabank Center. At the Roxbury, $5 food all day, all night. You cannot beat that. They have a DJ 7 nights a week. On Sunday night, consider it Sin Sundays. That is an industry night. $3 shots and $6 doubles, $5 pints. Prices like that you cannot beat downtown Halifax. Wednesday night, consider it 90s night. The Boozy Brunch, $5 food, $15 pitchers of Caesar. That is a weekend special. Whenever you're hungover, get in there, get some brunch, $5 food, $15 pitchers of Caesar. That is a great bang for your buck. And remember, when you are supporting the Roxbury, you are directly supporting the High Button. So make sure to get into the Roxbury, get some food, get some drinks, get some good service, and you'll be all right. Test. All right, we're going. Coady, sorry about that. Welcome.
Round two.
Welcome to the podcast, man.
Yeah,
thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
I was saying on the first round that you live an interesting life. You raise 20 dogs. You race dogs, dog sledding. You don't come across many people that do what you do. I think it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into it?
Yeah, when I was younger, I just finished playing football. Realized that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I moved out west, taking a different path, got into volunteer work, working outside, being in the environment, saw the Rockies, got hooked on them, came home, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like 19, I think. And I was like, well, I'll bike across Canada. And that maybe in that 3-month period, I'll figure out what I want to do. So the bike trip was the following summer. So I had this whole winter gap with nothing, and I needed to pay for that bike trip. So I got a job as a dog mushing guide in the Rockies with no experience. So I just got lucky. They were kind of desperate for a guide. So 2 weeks after I got the job, I was in Lake Louise. I was learning how to dog mush. And then I spent 4 years at that company working for a friend and looked after the dogs in the summertime. And then started my own dog sledding company in Yellowknife for the past 3 winters. And then got into racing more recently because now I own my own dogs. Yeah. And realized that I like racing. I like a lot more aspects of racing than I did the tourism, at least full-time tourism where you got to own all the dogs. Yeah. So I was able to had an opportunity to get out of the tours, like a clean cut, adopted out a lot of dogs as pets that I had as working dogs. Yeah. And then I just kept my main racing team, and that's what I got now. So. I want to talk about the biking across. Like, you caught me there. Like, talk about a thumbnail to start a podcast. Yeah. Biking across Canada. Yeah. I got into... just bring the mic a bit closer. I'm sorry. They're not the best mics. Yeah. So I was working for this company teaching kids about bike mechanics. Yeah. And like traveling by bicycle. And after I'd worked there, I was just hooked on biking, and like I still didn't even have my license when I was like 19. Yeah. I avoided getting my license because I figured a car was going to tie me down. If I got a car in Halifax, I'd never leave Halifax. Yeah. So I just waited, and then all of a sudden I was like, well, let's bike across Canada. And Did you go with anyone? Yeah, I had a buddy. We started the idea. And then by the time we started the trip, there were 10 people that were biking with us. That just met you along the way type thing? A couple of them met us along the way. Most of them we knew, though, like before the trip. Yeah. And they actually we started on the West Coast in Tofino, and we biked all the way to Halifax. So how does that work schedule-wise? Like, what time do you start biking? How long do you take a break for? What time do you go to bed? Where do you sleep? Yeah, so with the bike trip... we were pretty laid back. Like, we didn't have any set things that we had to see or do. It was kind of just like, oh, let's go to this town, let's go to this city. Yeah. So we knew we had about 3.5 months, and some days we would bike like 30 kilometers. Some days we bike 100, 150 kilometers, and you just stop where you want to stop and sleep where you want to sleep. And yeah, it's just a really good way to spend your summer, and you're super active. You're biking 10 hours a day. So did you listen to anything while you were biking? Like, did you have headphones in? Yeah, actually, I still listen to when I was biking, I was always listening to like house music with just like a steady, constant beat, because you're just constantly pedaling. Yeah. And the beat will be the same. Also, you pedal to the beat. Pretty much, yeah. And you just zone out because you're on the bike for 10 hours. Yeah. And then now it's funny because with dog mushing, it's like the same thing. I'm back into listening. Well, I'll listen to anything because I'm on the sled so much. Yeah. but like I still listen to a lot of like house with just steady beats, but I listen to like country and rock and everything. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
And the fact that you transferred that over, because like when you were telling me on when you messaged me 300 miles,
Yeah.
I was trying to look up like what's 300 miles. Like that's a long distance.
That's a lot of kilometers. Yeah.
Essentially, how do you? I don't even know what I'm trying to ask here, but
How do you do it?
how? Yeah, well, that's essentially the question. But
Yeah.
okay, yeah, sure. Let's just go with how do you do it?
Well, like if you want to, well, you got to train your dogs. Like when I start out in the fall and I start training, I'm
Yeah.
taking the dogs on 5-mile runs, and that's all they're capable of at that point.
Yeah.
And then you just slowly work them up and up and up. By the time I get to the race, like they'll be able to run, 80, 100 miles at a time.
Yeah.
And then during the race, it's just a matter of what your race schedule is. So you might run like 60 miles, rest 5 hours, run 60 miles, rest 5 hours. Every schedule is different depending where your checkpoints are along the way.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like 3 days spent on the trail. It's cold. You gotta be very prepared. You gotta know where you're stopping.
Yeah.
You gotta like ship out, because you don't carry 300 miles worth of dog food on your sled.
Mm-hmm.
Like you ship out like to each checkpoint a drop bag.
Yeah.
So you pull into the checkpoint, you get your drop bag. You can stay at the checkpoint and camp, or you can keep going. If your schedule says you got to keep running for another hour or whatever, you can camp out on the trail.
So you have a tent, everything set up.
I don't use a tent. You got so much winter gear on that, and if you're going on the dogs, so the dogs usually only need like 5-6 hours of sleep, and then they can run again. So
where do you sleep?
Like you do probably 2-3 hours of preparation in the 6 hour, then you just close your eyes for a few hours and then you just wake up. So sleep deprivation is a huge part of, like, even right now I'm tired just because I've been running dogs like in the day, at night. So like you got to get used to it too. You got to be able to function with lack of sleep. Like you got to, like some people when they open their sled bag, they'll have a list of what they need to do, like take the booties off the dogs, feed the dogs, put the straw down, because they're so tired that you just like, you can't even think of those simple things.
So even if you've been doing this for the amount of years that I'd say a pro has been doing it, you still have to look at the list.
Yeah, these are what the pros are doing.
Because you're still tired.
Yeah.
You sure you don't want coffee?
No, I'm good. Okay. Trust me, I live on coffee. I've had enough. I'm good with whiskey now.
How do you have coffee on these races? Do you have a kettle with you? How do you plug the kettle in?
Yeah, so coffee, all checkpoints at a race
have coffee.
Typically we'll have coffee. So if I don't do anything else, I'll usually like run in and at least grab a coffee. And I always take like thermoses, and like one will be coffee and one will be water. You got to keep your water in a thermos because it might be like 40 below Celsius. So your water will just freeze like instantly if you got it in a regular cup or whatever.
Man. So when do these dogs sleep outside? You said 2 hours?
Dogs will sleep like 5 to 6 hours, but it depends on the race. Like if you're running a 100-mile race, you might just run 50 miles. The dogs will sleep for 2 hours, and then they'll run 50 miles to the finish line. But if it's a 300-mile race, you got to conserve more energy. So you'll be resting the dogs a lot more, so that 3 days later, the dogs are still at like their peak performance crossing the finish line. Yeah. So it just depends on the distance of the race. If you're running a 100-mile, 200 or 300, you're going to run each one different.
How many dogs are on a sled when they're pulling you?
So each race is different. Okay. Last year we did a 200-mile race and we did a 100-mile race. And the 100-mile race was a 7-dog race. 7. And then, 2 and 2. Yeah. And then one at the front. You can run it actually however you want. You can have 2 dogs in front, 1 dog in the middle, like to figure out the odd number. Yeah. But typically it's like 2 by 2 by 2. Yeah. And the 200-mile race was a 9-dog race. And then the 300-mile one this year, it's a 12-dog race. And yeah, I think I'm going to run it with 12. If I don't have 12 solid dogs, I might run it with like 11 or 10. But 10 or 11 dogs, they can do. Like they can do the same as 12 dogs. So if you're not confident in your 12th dog, you're better off not taking them with you, if you know what I mean. Can you rest a dog on your sled with you? Like let's say you're doing a race and there's 12 and you say, okay, you can tell 2 are tired. Can you take those 2 dogs off the leash and put them on the sled with you to rest? You can. And like that's the thing too, like you got to have space in your sled because like sometimes a dog might like nick a nail and like chip a nail or get like a little cut in their pad, or if they just get tired because they don't have the training or whatever, or if they get sick on the trail or something, you have to load them in your sled, carry them to the next checkpoint. Every checkpoint will have like a whole team of veterinarians. So if there's a problem, you go right to the vets. Vets look after the dog.
Wow.
The dog might be able to continue racing. Like if it's just something where they just need some rest and a bit of a massage or something, like if it's a tight muscle, if it's something that they're not going to just like walk off, then you have a handler who's driving your truck checkpoint to checkpoint, and the dog can go with them for the rest of the race.
So they have dog massagers at these checkpoints.
Oh yeah, man. You should, like, they've got dog acupuncture, they've got dog massages, they've got everything now. It's huge. Yeah, hydrotherapy.
These dogs are rock stars.
Yep. Oh yeah. Once you get into racing, like the better, like if you want to be successful, you have to have a healthy and happy team, because those are the dogs that are going to run the best.
So what are the keys to building a happy and healthy team?
Well, you gotta have good nutrition. So like they need like a certain amount of protein and fat in their diet so that they can build the muscle as you're training them. They need the proper training, because like let's say I went to go run like a marathon right now.
Yeah.
I don't have the training to run a marathon. So mentally I would probably get like really discouraged and upset, like 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers into the run. So if you run the dogs on a 300-mile race, but they're only trained to run 50 miles, their mentally will start to break down, and then they're not going to be happy. But if they're trained to run 300 miles, then they're going to look the same at the beginning as they are at the end, because they have the training for it. So the key is really just to do the training.
It's interesting how you as an owner know how far to push a dog in order to train them to run 300 miles. When I walk my dog, sometimes, we'll go for long walks, and there's a part of me is like, is he tired right now?
Yeah.
And is that a skill set to be able to know how far to push your dog? Is that something that you learn over time?
It's pretty much over time. Like I started out doing tours, so I was just doing short runs every day. So like basically you would start to see the dogs get tired. Maybe if like you did 3 trips with them in a day where they should have maybe only done 2, you might start to see them get a little tired at the end. So like that's where I kind of learned, like, okay, that dog can do 2 runs a day, but I'm going to rest them for the 3rd. This dog can only do 1. So you learn with your team there. And I worked at a really good company. So I had my own team working there. Like she gives you 16 dogs, and those are your dogs for the season. So you learn everything about them. So
did you learn personalities about them as well?
Oh yeah.
Like can you? Yeah. I figured I know Levi well. I spent a lot of time with him. But 20 dogs. Can you determine 20 personalities?
Yeah, I can tell you like where they run, how far they can run right now in training. I can tell you what they should look like at whatever point in the winter. I can tell you who their parents are, grandparents, great-grandparents, where I got them, who they run good with in the team, if they can lead, what situation they'll lead good in. I can tell you everything about them.
That's so cool. That's a special bond that most humans...
Yep.
If you have a dog, that's wicked. You can build a relationship. But 20 dogs on a day-to-day basis, spending every single day of your life with them.
And especially once your training picks up and you're doing like 20, 40-mile runs, maybe 2 of those in a day. Yeah. You'll spend like 24 hours a day with the dog. With a pet, sometimes you're only spending like 4 or 6 hours a day if you got to work and you got to sleep.
Yeah.
So you think with a sled dog, like I'm literally, my only job is to work with them. So that's why you get to know them so well, is because if you want to be successful, you got to know your dogs. Like you got to be able to see, okay, there's some, like that dog just is missing like a step. Like I wonder what's going on with them. It might be as simple as the dog they're running with, they have a problem with them. So you just got to move them around. They might be too far up in the team. They don't have the confidence for it. So like stuff like that, you got to be aware of.
So hypothetical, you're mid-race, your 6th dog on the right. He's limping a little bit. It's coming down to the wire. You maybe have 10 miles left in the race.
I would put him in the sled.
You put him in the sled?
Yeah, I just stop. I put him in the sled. I keep going. Like in the 200-mile race. Yeah. I had this dog. He was my first dog. So I had him all through the time I was doing tours for 7 years. And I always wanted to race with him because I really liked him. But like 4 years ago, he had a small shoulder injury that he healed up from, and I never saw it again.
How old was he?
He's 7 now. Okay. But the injury was when he was like 3. Okay. Never saw it again. He kept working, kept doing tours. He healed up from it. So then this year I was training, and I was like, I'm going to keep him in the team because I just want that. Like I got such a good bond with him. I want him to be a part of my first race. Yeah. Thinking back, I should have left him out, because that pre-existing injury, when I was 130 miles into a 200-mile race, all of a sudden he starts limping. He's a 70-pound dog in my sled. So then he's in the sled. So you've now taken one dog out of the team, so you got less power, and you added 70 pounds to your sled. So then I got to push like just a little bit more, but I train with small teams. I only run like 5 to 6 dogs when I'm training. A lot of people will run like, 10, 16, 20 dogs all at once just to get them all out. But I find them, I was taught by the guy that taught me about racing that they'll just build a little bit better muscle and they'll have more confidence if you run them in small teams, and you'll have more confidence too.
Why is that?
It's so that in a race, if you do have to drop some dogs and you go from like 10 dogs down to 5 dogs, you'll be comfortable because you've done all your training with 5 dogs. Those 5 dogs can run 200 miles, 300 miles because you've done it. A lot of people will get down to 5, 6 dogs and they'll be like, oh, I've never done this. Yeah. And they'll just drop out. But if the dogs are trained that way, it's not like you're carrying 5 dogs in your sled, because at the checkpoint, you've given that dog to your friend, like your handler, who's looking after your truck and driving checkpoint to checkpoint. Okay. So yeah, it works for me. Also, I find if I do bump up the number of dogs when I'm training, they go too fast. And if you're training too fast, you'll cause injuries in the team. So you got to keep them at a certain like 8.5 miles, like nice and slow and steady, in order to prevent injuries.
At what age do you start training?
So 1 year old, so there's first winter, second winter, third winter. First winter, harness break. Don't really do anything with them because they're still growing.
At 1 year old?
At 1 year old. So they're still growing. So just introduce them to the harness, maybe put them in the team for like a couple of short runs, just so they learn. 2 years old, they can do like their second winter, they can do all the race training, but they won't race. Because racing, you push a little bit more, so the dogs need to be mentally tough for that. Cool. And you just want to make sure you got that like fully grown athletic dog, like ready to do it.
And that's at 3 years old?
At 3 years old. So at 2, they're doing all the race training. So they'll do like 2,000, 3,000 miles.
So 2, they're physically fit, just not mentally.
Yeah. Cool. Pretty much. And then at 3, I find if you can wait till 3 years old, and this is what I was taught, is at 3 years old, that dog's ready to race. And if you wait till 3 years old, that dog will continue being a sled dog like a lot longer. Like at 10 years old, they'll still have the mental like drive and enthusiasm to run. Whereas if you start them younger, like at 2, then sometimes at like 5 years old, that dog will already be like, okay, I'm kind of over it. And then you'll retire them and they'll be a pet. So
interesting.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it strictly Huskies that you breed to race?
Yeah. So the type of dog I use, they're called Alaskan Husky.
Alaskan Husky.
Yeah. And for like competitive racing, Alaskan Husky is a performance bred dog. So we have mixed other breeds into it to get them to go a little faster, to shorten the length of fur on them. Some people breed to sprint. Some people are breeding to go long distance. I use kind of like in between because I'm running long distance, but like 300 miles, not 1,000 miles. So I still can use like a bit of a faster dog. And you just never know though, because I've taken dogs from all different kennels, like sprint kennels, stage kennels, distance kennels, and mixed them together. And then I've picked out the best ones out of that. And my team is really a bunch of misfits, but they all have that thing that makes them work good, really, like makes them work really well as a team.
So right now, is it an off day for your dogs?
No, when I get home later on, I'm gonna be running them.
So what's the day? What are you doing today? Like what's the distance?
Right now they're just up to 14 miles. Okay. But because we don't have enough snow here, I run them with a 4-wheeler instead of a sled. So I'll take them out on a 14-mile run. It'll take less than 2 hours. And that's pretty much it. And then I might free run them as well, like just let them chase the quad, but just for a little bit, like as a warm up, and then again as a cool down. Yeah. And then I'll take my puppies out because I've got some 4-month-old puppies that are just full of energy, and I'll just take them with the 4-wheeler, and they'll probably do like 7 or 10 miles just running loose. Yeah. Then I'll take my other group of yearlings. I've got 3 1-year-olds, and those guys will run loose with the 4-wheeler. They'll run full speed because they're very competitive. It's 3 boys. Yeah. So they always want to be in front, which just makes them like take
That's awesome.
off.
That's good.
It's crazy. And they're big. Yeah. And they'll probably do like 10, 15 miles.
You sent me a video of you going to the gas station with the dogs. Yeah. Is that, do people must come up to you and just be like,
Yeah,
essentially
so-
what I'm doing right now?
Yeah. So what happened with that was I was in Dawson City. I went up a week before this 200-mile race I was doing.
Okay.
And like Dawson City is such a good place to train. You got the Yukon.
Where is
River.
Dawson City?
It's in the Yukon, and I think it's about a 5-hour drive from Whitehorse. Whitehorse is the capital, so then you drive further.
So you're up
Alaska.
there.
Yeah, you're way out there. It's like Gold Rush City. It's really neat. Not a lot of people there in the winter because tourism is more summer there.
Okay.
There's no like ski hills or anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm training on the river, and there's snowmobile trails everywhere, and I'm just taking them, and I'm trying to get like 15-30 mile runs in, and then all of a sudden I come up over the snowbank and I'm in the parking lot of a gas station. And I was like, you've got 9 dogs, you're now on like an inch of ice because you're in a parking lot, so you can't just stop the team. So I have a good leader. I'm lucky. Like I have a
What's his name?
Her name is Ebony.
Her name?
Oh yeah. Typically,
I don't know why her name.
Yeah. No, my best leaders typically are the females. Actually, my team is I think I've got 7 females right now, and only 3 males.
Are they built better than males when it comes to the Alaskan Husky?
Not really. Like everybody has a different opinion. Some people only run males. Some people will run both. Some people will neuter their dogs. Some people will leave them intact. Like so many different ways of dog mushing and ideas. I just take the dogs that race well.
Do you neuter the dogs?
I do. I find it's a lot easier to work with them. They keep weight on a lot easier. You can feed them less and they'll get fat easier, if that makes sense. Like when they're intact, they're just burning calories all the time. Like they see a female in heat, boom, they're going to drop weight. They're going to stop eating. Whereas if they're neutered, they're not going to care about that, and they're just going to keep eating regular. They're going to hold weight. Yeah. And they're easier to work with. They're less aggressive. Some people find it takes the edge off of them when they're racing, so you get less out of them, but I don't think that's true. The races I've done, my neutered dogs have done just as good as the intact ones.
Okay. I interrupted you about the gas station story. Was there?
Oh yeah. Sorry. So I end up there, and I know I got a good leader. So I just tell it, like, you can't just turn a team right around because your whole team would be tangled up. So I just tell her, like, keep going, and she goes straight right in between the 2 gas pumps. There's a car there with like a daughter and a mom, and they're just looking at me like, oh my God. Even in Dawson City, they were surprised. And then they went out, and I was able to get my leader to just do like a nice big U-turn so that the team doesn't get tangled.
That's true. You can't back up.
Yeah, there's no reverse. There's no parallel parking. There's nothing like that. And so then I was able to just get her to go back over the snowbank, and we run into stuff like that all the time. Like we were on a property with loose dogs that like ran at the team, they're like, the team is good. They're trained, so they.
But you must come across some incidences where things got tangled, the ropes got tangled, right?
I've never had too many problems, and it's because I spent so many years doing tours that I just learned how to get out of stuff quick and like avoid stuff. Yeah. The key is to just see it coming and avoid it. Like, so you know what's going to cause tangles, so just don't put yourself in those situations. What causes tangles? Just like if you run dogs that don't like each other too close together, and you have to be in a tight situation where you're stopped or something, they might go like try to get at each other. And if they're right next to each other, so like you just got to keep your dogs calm and happy. So like if I ever do get a tangle or anything, when I'm walking up to the team, I don't run up. I just like walk up like, oh, good dogs. And they might have like a cable like underneath them or something. Sometimes it like gets under a leg. So I stop the team. I go up. I'm like, oh, good dogs. They're standing there. They look like they're a little tangled up, and they're just wagging their tails. So it's the key is like how you approach it. Yeah. It's the same with pet dogs. Like you just got to keep your stress level down, and the dogs will keep the stress level down. Do you carry treats in your pocket? I carry treats, but the treats are like snacks. So it'll be like a big chunk. Well, not a big chunk when you're racing, or even training, but just like a piece of raw meat. It's usually ground up. It'll be beef, pork. Like we feed them everything. I was gonna say that was my next question, the nutrition side of it. These dogs are running 300-mile races. You're gonna be losing some weight. What do you are you when you're feeding them their dog food? Are you putting chunks of chicken, beef into their? They're actually eating a lot more raw food. Like I'm sponsored by this really good company in Alberta. Plug away if you want to give them a shout out. Yeah, Dog's Choice. Thank you very much. Shout out Dog's Choice. Yeah, and anyways, they used to be butchers, and they started this dog food company. And so like the food comes packaged like really nice, because sometimes it'll just come in like a bag and it's just frozen and hard to work with. Yeah. This stuff's like perfectly square. You take it out of a cardboard box. It's then in a vacuum sealed bag.
Oh, sorry, what is it though?
It's ground up meat.
Ground, but for humans or for
dogs? It's dog quality.
Okay.
But like it's not far off from human quality either.
Okay.
Like it's good meat. You can't feed the dogs bad meat because they'll get sick. So like it is good meat. It's just there is a big market for dog mushers. So out west you can have a raw food supplier like that can sell pallets of 50-pound blocks of meat. And the best one I used last year was Deluxe, and it's like crazy. It's
Deluxe.
Bison, beef fat. It's injected with blood. So instead of packing it with water, they put blood in it. And yeah, it's got tripe, which is like cow stomach. It stinks. The dogs love it. It's good for them. And you can get chicken, you can get whatever. You can get pure beef fat. So
man, I'm telling you, some dogs, I say most dogs, not most, but some dogs,
I think nowadays most dogs
live better than humans.
Yeah, like I eat Mr. Noodles all winter, and the dogs are basically having like a steak dinner, and I'm eating like my cup of noodles on the back of the sled.
I was like, what happens all the time, like I'll be at a bus stop and I'll see like a dog drive by in a Range Rover, sitting in the passenger seat. I'm just sitting there like, yeah, I'm pouring in the soaking rain.
Yeah.
Levi, man, my dog, spoil him. He gets a new toy every weekend.
Yeah, but that's good. Like when I retire dogs out as pets, like people are like, oh, like is it okay? We're gonna like bring them inside, and I'm like, that's what I want. When they retire and they adapt to being a pet, like they love what they do. Like good sled dogs love what they do, and when they're ready to retire, they're ready to retire. They typically don't want to be pulling a sled anymore.
They just want to cuddle. Yeah.
So like I want you to bring them inside. I want you to turn them into a big baby, like dog mat, give them their own room, like feed them whatever, snacks all day. I don't care. I just want them happy and have a lot of attention.
Is there anything that you don't like when new people come around your sled dogs? Like I almost feel I'm thinking of a police dog. How I know some police dogs, they don't want people to go up and pet them on the head.
You know what?
Is there anything like that with you?
I'm always with them. So as long as I'm around, people can come right up and just ask me like, can I pet your dogs? And you can, because they're all friendly.
Any rules though? Like
any rules?
I don't know.
Nope, not really. Because I don't train them to like sit and stay and don't jump up. Like I don't really want them to jump up, but if they do, I don't get mad at them.
Okay.
So really, if there's somebody there might be a dog that's like not good with kids or something like that, or small dogs. So like if I see something that's not going to be a good situation, I'll be like, yeah, these three over here are great with kids. You can go up and pet them. So like I'll just keep the dogs safe so they don't get in trouble.
So are these dogs like, do you keep them in a big cage, or do you just live on a farm where they can run free?
Yeah,
you just call them in? Or?
Yeah, so I have them in a bunch of different things. Like, so I do live on a farm. It's like 5 acres. And then I have the whole area fenced in. And then inside of that, I have free run pens. So like fenced in areas where the dogs can live. Yeah. Some of the dogs are escape artists. So instead of putting them in there, I'll put them on tethers, and I'll give them a doghouse, and they'll have like shade and everything like that. What's
an escape route that a dog is taking? Do they dig under?
Well, people that have huskies know like they can escape from anything because they're and then like picture these guys, they're super athletes, so they're just like all
and they're
muscle.
smart.
Like, and then you put them in a chain link fence. No matter how much like wiring and stuff you put, the dog can still escape. So like there's probably like 3. Most of them I'm comfortable just leaving them in the fences, but if I have to actually leave the property, I'll make sure that there's a few of them that are definitely tied up, because I know they cannot escape from being tied up. Yeah. And that's just the safest thing, because where I live, we have a coyote problem, we have livestock, we got cows, sheep. Like I literally have 150 sheep right next to us. If I ever had a dog get loose, like not right next on the other side of the river or whatever, but if I had a dog get loose, go run in there, like, farmers shoot coyotes every day. So if they see a dog out there fooling around with their sheep, or worse comes to worse, like injuring one, they're within their rights to actually like put it down.
Do you have a gun on the property just in case a coyote comes too close?
I don't, because I don't have problems with coyotes. All that stuff that stays away from the dogs.
Why does it stay away from the dogs though?
I think it's just like coyotes are pretty skittish animals anyways. So like it's not like a wolf where they might like challenge the dogs, but even with wolves, like I don't get that. Like I've seen wolves with the dogs.
Have you?
They just scatter. So
I feel like a husky would be able to hold its own.
No, a wolf would kick the shit out of a husky. It? Oh yeah, wolves, like it's just their nature, where it's life or death every time they get in a fight. Yeah. And the dogs, they might have got in a couple little scraps growing up and stuff, but it's always just a dominance thing. Yeah. The wolf has the potential to just immediately kill the dog. So like, You just don't even put yourself in the situation. The only time I've ever seen wolves with dogs was we had 2 teams out, and we were just going along on a training run. We were up north on Great Slave Lake, big lake, wide open, and there's like all these little black dots up on the horizon, probably like a football field away. And I'm like looking, I'm like, it's not a dog team because they're just scattered around. Yeah. I'm like, oh shit, that's like, I knew there was a wolf pack around, and I was like, that's the wolf pack. The dogs sense it. So instead of going like single file, the 2 teams, they're now side by side. They're going full speed. So like
towards the wolves,
25, 30 miles an hour. And you're just holding on. You can't stop them at that kind of speed when they're that driven.
So what are you thinking in your head?
Well, I'm just like, I wonder what's going to happen, basically.
You're not worried for your life or anything? You're not thinking like that?
No. And what happened was the wolves, they were taking this path like from the area we were in to the city and back, and they were hunting along it, and we were running on the same trail. So the wolves were basically coming at us, and to go to town. So they just scattered and went in the woods. We flew by them. Like the dogs, they don't know why they get excited sometimes. They just do. Yeah. So they just keep running straight. They're still excited. And then as I'm looking back, I just see the wolves like come back out on the trail, and they just keep going. So they just kept going.
There's like a respect factor.
It's kind of just like they don't care. Like they eat like squirrels and, you know, any little like rabbits and little animals they can. The dogs, like, it's not a territorial thing or anything like that. Like, they just know that it's not a threat. Yeah. So it's just not in their nature to chase down a dog team.
You ever see any bears in Nova Scotia, or just
in Nova Scotia? I've seen bears. Like I live on the one side is sheep, in front of us is cows, the other side is blueberry farms. Okay. So we got a lot of bears where we live, and I haven't seen any with the dogs there.
There's a lot out west.
Yeah, out west I've seen just with the dogs loose, and on some training runs I've seen black bears and brown bears. And then I've only ever seen one grizzly bear, and we had 2 teams. We were training in northern BC, and we come down like a cut block on the edge, and there's this, like, grizzly bears are giant. Like, it just looks like it looks like it's 4 times the size of a black bear. They're not. They're only like two times the size. But it's just this huge brown blob down in the middle of the chopping, and it's just eating something. So we stop and we just watch it, and we're like, well, I wonder what's going to happen. He just stays down there. So we just stay on the logging road and we just keep going.
Just minding your own business.
Yeah, that's typically most times you run into wildlife. Like, they're just doing their thing, you're doing your thing. So don't provoke anything, and you'll probably be fine. And like, be safe, like carry a bear banger. One smart thing is, like, my buddy will put bear bells, which are just like little bells that you're supposed to wear when you're hiking. He'll put them on his gang line, so that when his dogs are running, it just sounds like, well, it sounds like jingle bells almost. Oh, yeah. But that keeps wildlife off the trail. The worst thing with dogs is actually moose, because moose, when in the winter picture them walking through all those deep snow trails, like it's hard on them. So what they want to walk on is the dog sledding trails, because they're hard packed. We pack them with snowmobiles. So they get up on our trails and they're walking along at night. We come around a turn. Like, I haven't had it happen to me, but it's pretty common practice. And there'll be a moose there. And like, you basically got to stop your team, hope that the moose doesn't charge, because they'll come into your team and they'll just start stomping around. And like, man, 1,000-pound moose, they can injure a dog really quick. Yeah. So that's where the noisemakers come in handy, because the moose will hear it and get off. Just get off. Yeah.
Have you ever sorry, you keep going.
Typically, you don't have an issue though. Like, I've never seen a moose with a dog. Well, I have, but not on a snowy trail. I've just seen them on a logging road, and there's so much space for them to just run off.
Do you have brakes on your sled? Because I was thinking, if the dogs all of a sudden stop, you could run them over if you keep going.
So you have 2 brake systems. You have a drag mat, which, like, that's how you control the speed. Because the dogs, they want to run fast. They're dogs. You train them to run slow. So you do that by just stepping on the drag mat, and it's just like a gradual friction. Okay. So that'll slow them down to the speed you want. And then once they're trained, they'll just run at that speed. You don't even really need to use the drag mat. And then in front of that is this big, like, it's a bar and it's got teeth on it. So when you press on it, they drive into the snow and ice, and that will actually stop you. Like, I can stop a 12, 15 dog team, whatever.
Oh, can you?
And then I also have snow hooks. As long as the snow is good, like, if there's no snow on the ground, you can't stop your team. If there's all soft snow, you can't stop your team. You also have anchors, which are attached, like they're a big snow hook, and you put those in the ground and you press them in and they'll dig right in. So if you need to go to the front of your team, like off of your sled, put your anchors in.
Can dogs ever run on ice? Like I think you just said you ran on a lake once.
Oh yeah. Well, like the lakes are usually have like a nice snow trail on them.
Okay. But can their paws grip on ice and get going?
They can. Like this is where like we use booties, like just cotton or that like Dura brand or whatever, Coady.
Okay.
Booties on each dog's foot. They last about 50 miles and then you put a new one on. So every foot of every dog for every mile that you do.
Okay.
You go through a lot of booties.
Wow.
Because you put holes in them or whatever.
Yeah.
So then when you get on ice, if you're in it, like, you know, you're going to be on ice and you want the dogs to have traction, you might take the front booties off or all 4 booties off, because the nails on the dogs and even the pads, they'll grip a bit better than just the Coady booty. So
what's one thing maybe that people just wouldn't know about, like, an everyday, like I think I've asked some pretty good questions and you've given some great answers to a day in the life of you, but what's something that most people maybe wouldn't know, maybe the toughest part about your job that most people just wouldn't know?
I think the biggest thing I run into is just people don't understand, like, it's not just that it's a breed of dog and you train them to go in a harness and then you show up to a race. It's the breed of dog, you introduce them to a harness, and then it's mile after mile of physical training, just like you go to the gym or just like you train for a marathon. Yeah. But like you put literally 2,000, 3,000 miles on these dogs before the race, and then you race. So like when I show up to a race, it's not like I've just had the team and been feeding them. Like you've been out running that team almost every day all winter. So when people are like, wow, you know the team really well, it's like, yeah, because I've spent like 10 hours in a day just on the back of the sled watching every single dog run, and you're just going up and down watching the dogs, seeing exactly how they move, so that if that ever changes, you know that there might be something like off with that dog.
Do you ever have any problems with what's the company that, not company, it's a group of people and they're all towards animals and PETA. Do you have any, like, I know there's nothing wrong with racing dogs, but does PETA ever?
Well, PETA's against dog sledding. And,
are they?
Yeah. And like for me, I'm all for dog mushing, but I'm for humane dog mushing. Like you got to take care of your dogs and you just got to be responsible. Like you don't overbreed. You shouldn't have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dogs in your kennel without a purpose for them. Like, you know, you just got to be responsible with what you're doing. Make sure the dogs have a good quality of life. And basically I try to do it the way I was taught, is don't just hook the dogs up, go for a run, put the dogs back at their house. Like have something else. So like,
well, what's your something else?
Something else is just literally teaching the dogs to be off leash, like free running them in pens, taking the time to build big fenced in areas where you can take the dogs and play with them loose. Because in the summertime, I'm away working for 6 months. I hire somebody to look after my dogs, so they live on my property, and their only job for the whole summer, wake up, go out, feed the dogs, water the dogs, clean all the poop, let the dogs loose. At the end of the night, put them back in their fence and tie them up.
Sounds like a pretty good life.
That's it. Like that's the whole job. Is just, it's a lot of work, and anybody that's done it will say like it's fun, but it is a big job.
What time do you have to wake up in the morning to do this?
It depends. Like everybody's different. I'm pretty laid back in the summertime. Like I don't need people waking up at 5 a.m. But when it comes to training, you know, like the dogs, you want to have them hydrated in the morning, like 2-3 hours before you run. And then you want to have them fed like within an hour kind of after you come back. So in winter, the schedule can be any time of the day. Sometimes I'm just running at night, sometimes I'm running in the day. But in the summer, it's pretty easy. Like, I don't know, 8 o'clock, they can go to the yard, 7 o'clock, they can go out, clean up, do all that. They can come back in, get a coffee, you know, let the dogs rest with the food for a bit, and then they can go back out and let them all loose and play together. Big thing with my kennel too is I always make sure the dogs are all good together. So like I take the time to introduce this dog to this dog and this dog to this dog. That way it's not like, okay, I let off a quarter of the kennel and they run around and then I put them back, and then like 25% at a time. Yeah. I let off 100% of the kennel. They all play together and then I put them back. That way they're getting, it's easier to give them more time free running. Yeah. So like all the dogs can have 6 hours of playtime in a day, instead of having to split that up into like, okay, this group gets an hour and a half, this group gets an hour and a half.
Okay,
but like it's not easy. Like
I was gonna say that must take a lot of work if you're gonna introduce one dog to another one dog for them to get to know each other.
For me, I just do it like I do it right off the bat. Like the first thing I do when I show up at the end of the winter, all the dogs go loose. I go in there, and if I hear any growling or if I see, like, you just see the dogs like perk up and look at another dog the wrong way, you tell them no right away. You're just on top of it.
Yeah.
And you know the dogs so well that it becomes really easy when you're working with them.
I don't want to go back to the negative aspect, but I do want to talk about PETA for a second. Do they show up at these events with signs? I've been to the circus once.
They show up to like the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Like they always show up to Iditarod and Yukon Quest and stuff like that. But you know, I don't mean to just like throw Toronto into a box, but
man, do what you want.
It is like, it's a lot of, you know, people that come from cities and they're used to, like, you know, you get a dog as a pet and you bring it home and that dog lives on your couch with you, or not even with you. Maybe you go to work all day and the dog's in a kennel, blah, blah. But like, you know, I don't talk about activists and PETA all that much because I know in my heart that what I'm doing with the dogs is good and the dogs are happy and I'm happy, and I don't need to explain that to anyone else. And anybody that knows me and knows my dogs sees that. Yeah. So I don't, like, I've gotten away from, you know, arguing with somebody that's, you know, 1,000 miles away who's trying to tell me over the computer that what I'm doing is wrong.
Someone's done that to you?
Well, they'll do it to anybody that's a dog musher. But I just stay out of it, man.
No, I hate to bring it up, but it's something you got to talk about on a podcast. It is, because you're going to talk about this.
It's there, and I see, and like with online stuff now, like people are so quick to just like share this, and they'll just share something without looking at it. And I've seen, like, you know, I'll say 100%. There's kennels out there that should just be shut down. And sometimes the SPCA doesn't have enough power to just go in and shut down a kennel. Yeah. Because the dog, like if there's a death or the financial problem, the dogs don't have the money to be looked after properly. Yeah, somebody should go in and take them out of there. Yeah. And I find sometimes there's not enough law to do that. But like, I'm a part of a couple of different like dog mushing coalitions where we have to follow like a certain practice and stuff like that. You have to get vets to sign off on it and get the SPCA to come to your kennel. And but like, we do it anyways. Like the dog mushers that are in this coalition, they're already doing that. It's not like they joined it and then changed their kennel. Okay. It's like, this is just how you dog mush. There's just some people out there that for whatever reason, you know, it could be money, it could be just laziness, it could be however they ended up with a bunch of dogs and they don't know how to look after them. But those are the people that always end up online. But then sometimes people will just see like a kennel of dogs in a certain situation. So like, maybe maybe I'm feeding the kennel and all the dogs are getting really excited. Somebody takes a video and they're like, oh my God, look at these dogs running around, barking in circles, jumping on the fence, stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, but I'm going around with food. Yeah. Like I'm feeding my dog. Put some
dark music in the background and like make it look like it's
you know, and sometimes it's justified. It's just sometimes when I actually sit and like, if you mute the music and you don't pay attention to the subtitles and you actually just look past all that stuff and you look at the dogs in the video, like, they're barking, wagging their tails, they're being pet, there's somebody out there working with them. They do have like everything they need: water, food, shade, a sturdy doghouse. You know, it's not that dogs were built to be inside on a couch. You know, these dogs, we have literally just bred them for what they do. Yes, they make great pets, but they're really good at dog mushing. So
dogs love to run.
And you see it when I take them for a run.
Yeah, we have a cottage out in Bridgewater, and it's just, I think we have 5 acres as well. Yeah. And I hate Levi here because he's upstairs right now, sitting, moping, doing absolutely nothing. And then every Friday after work, we'll just go to the cottage, and you could see it in his...
Yeah, you see it. They get like excited.
My dad will go upstairs and pack, and as soon as my dad starts to pack, Levi knows that we're going to the cottage, and he just starts jumping around. He knows what he's doing. And we have a trail before we get to the cottage, just the dirt road one way, but it's probably like a good 7-minute drive. But when we hit that trail at the beginning, we let Levi out and he just runs up by the car, and he just runs the whole way, and pretty much the whole weekend he just stays outside, runs around, jumps in the lake, does whatever. He's just such a different dog when he's there compared to here. And when he's upstairs right now, I know he's just not himself.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like, one thing I get a lot, which is like, in every industry you have stupid questions, or just like really common questions that if you kind of took a second, you can answer it yourself.
I'm sure I asked a couple today.
No, all your questions are great. So like one is like, do the dogs really like it? First of all, like I'm a dog guy. If you know me, I would hope that you think that I'm a decent human being. I'm not going to make dogs do something they don't like. I'm not going to be abusive. So like obviously the dogs I own that I'm running, they do enjoy it. But then just beside that, like physically, when I take the four-wheeler or a sled and I take harnesses out, the dogs, like that's their maximum energy level. Like they are so stoked. And when I put a harness on them and I let them loose and then they run over to the gang line and then I clip them up, like those dogs are going nuts. And it'll be sometimes like when I was doing tours that at that point the dogs are barking, wagging their tail, they're going like mayhem because they know they're about to leave. Somebody will be like, so do they like it? And that's just where you got to be like, and it actually just happened the other day. And it was somebody I know. And like, even when I heard it, I was like, it's like right there.
They run to their position. Yeah. You don't even have to tell them to come over. And
then some, like back to the activist thing, like they'll say, yeah, but if that's all they ever do, obviously they're going to get excited. But you know, I'll let those dogs loose for 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, whatever. You won't see them that happy. And like some dogs, when I let them loose, they just find a doghouse and they just lay in it. They might just lay in the sun. Like they don't do anything. Not all dogs run around and play. Yeah. It's the same as pets. They each have a different personality. But that dog, when I put them in a gang line, it's a completely different dog. They're super stoked. They're very happy. They're very social. They're friendly with you. They're friendly with dogs. Like I've had shy, sometimes like sketchy dogs that I've got. And like they never come out to you. They never want to be pet. They stay away from all the other dogs. You put them in a team and it's like the happiest you've ever seen the dog. It's a completely different dog. So, you know, like there's a lot more to it than what people will just post. And like a 20-second video on Facebook or whatever doesn't describe the whole dog mushing industry. And I think there's enough people out there with common sense. It's just people with common sense don't spend 20 hours a day on the computer talking about stuff all over the world. They're out in the world doing stuff. So that's why you maybe don't see the other side of it.
You got to understand, Coady, there's a lot of bored people in the world. They gotta find something to poke at. Yeah. You know.
But yeah, I've always just ignored it. And you know, if anybody has any questions,
hit them up.
They can ask me. Yeah. I might answer them, might not, but usually I do. Like I'm open to any interviews. I always bring people out to the kennel. I take people. I was
gonna say I want to come out and see this.
Yeah, like it's pretty straightforward. The dogs they're all stoked. The big thing is like if you see a happy, social, like healthy looking dog, like, you know, where is the abuse? Where is the neglect? It's like, okay, you've got a dog that's a bone rack, like obviously doesn't have good nutrition, isn't being fed. They're sketchy. They look like they've been, like if you go to pet them, they might like back right away. Some dogs do that without being abused, but like if the whole kennel would be like that, then yeah, okay, you got some like justification in what you're saying. But I've never been in a kennel like that. Even some kennels where I'm like, you know, you could change this or this to make it like better on the dogs. And like they're usually always open to it. Like even those ones, they still have happy dogs. Like they're still looking after their dogs. They're doing what they think is right, the way they were taught. Yeah. It's just sometimes you just got to teach them like a new way of doing it. But you got to remember, like you got to stay within means. Like, okay, let's like for me, first thing I did was build a fence so that I can have the dogs loose. Some people don't think about that right away. So then it's like, well, I can't just let them loose because they'll run away. And then it's not safe for the dog to just go loose and possibly run away and get shot by a farmer. So I don't know, there's like a lot of sides to everything, but I just focus on what I'm doing, put the miles on the dogs, show up to races, have fun, and I'm happy, they're happy.
Do you see yourself doing this for the rest of your life?
It's hard to see me not doing this. I
was gonna say, you seem real happy.
Yeah, like you're
passionate about what you're talking about right now.
After, like, I just made a big transition where I was doing tours for 7 years and I had my own company, and I decided to get away from it because I didn't like owning that many dogs just for tours and then having my race team on the side. So financially, when you're doing tours, like you're making money that's paying for the dogs. So it's a bit easier. Yeah. But I didn't like owning 60 dogs and just having me, and like the situation wasn't good, you know, for what I wanted to do. And I wanted to focus on racing. But when I do that, like I'm not making any money from racing.
What about sponsorships?
You know, I get like a sponsorship helps, but
it's not paying the bills.
Yeah. Just in general, like you'll spend like 30 grand on dogs in a year easily. So it's like sponsorship is great and stuff, but I don't bank on it. I work 6-7 months of the year so that I can be able to go race for 4 months. I don't buy nice clothes. I don't buy brand new anything. I buy everything secondhand. If I have to spend a lot of money, it's usually something to do with the dogs. So I'm saving that money, like especially if I needed to take them to the vet for an emergency. I want to make sure I have like a couple grand sitting aside so that I can do that. And like if I'm out there buying all the nicest stuff, then I can't do that. So, but I don't know. I just realized young that don't spend your money on material stuff. Spend your money on stuff that's going to actually make you happy. Yeah. So, and I'm a dog musher. Yeah. It's the easiest way to spend a lot of money is be a dog musher.
When I was younger, I always thought to myself, you know, I want to be rich. I want to have the Lamborghini. I want to have all that. And when you get older, you start to realize what makes you happy and what, you know, you need to have a struggle in life every day in order to push forward. And now I'm 26 years old, turning 27. Your perspective on life has changed. Yeah. I still, you know, I like clothes. I'll buy something nice, but my perspective has changed on what really makes me happy. And it's not nice clothes. It's not fancy restaurants. It's not materialistic things. It's
experience.
It's good conversation. I love this podcast. Like right now, the fact that, you know, we met up and we're able to talk about this, I'm in my element right now. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing than talking to you sitting right now.
And you can see it with people too. When they're doing what they love, you can just see the difference between like somebody doing what they're passionate about and somebody that's just doing the 9 to 5. They've all got the same complaints. They've got the same problems. You know, you got to do what you got to do. I've worked my share of 9 to 5 and, you know, been in situations where I wasn't happy too. And sometimes you just got to do it because you got to make the money or whatever your situation is. But when it's possible and the opportunity's there, like you should really pursue what makes you happy.
Do you think if you started a business in a climate where it snowed all year round, that could help a business like that you're in? Because it doesn't snow here all year round.
Like Nova Scotia, I've always just come back here with the dogs in the summer just because I'm from here and I love it. Like my family, my friends, and it's nice in the summer. Like that heat is beautiful. Great. The dogs get a summer coat. You know, it's a good climate.
But what if you lived in the Yukon?
But in the Yukon, you know, they're still getting summer. But it's more expensive. I might not have the same type of work that I have here. I would love to go up to the Yukon, to be honest. Like I lived in Yellowknife for 3 years and I loved it there. Like I'm a guide. I do fishing, dog sledding, whatever.
You ever ice fish?
Tours. Yeah.
I want to try that this year.
Yeah. We ice fish in the winter, but you don't catch as much. Whereas in the springtime, you catch like 100 fish a day. So ice fishing is okay until you get cold and you're like, I'm done. But yeah, it's good experience. Like it's so cold up there that you drill through over 4 feet of ice to get to the water.
4 feet.
4 feet.
That's
that.
You got a drill that's 4 feet long.
So the ice auger, it has an extension so that it can go down. Then the extension will push it down that extra bit. It's crazy. Yeah. It's a different world up north. Like I love it. It's just, it's got to be, I've got to be able to afford to live up there and it's going to fit with all of my everything going on. And right now this works. Live here in the off season. Travel for the dogs, like travel for the racing and stuff.
One thing I think that is awesome with guys like you and I is that the fact that you find a passion before the age of 30, I think that's a great thing. I think that's a rare thing. I think a lot of people know what they want to do, but just don't have the balls to do it at this point. So I think if you're below the age of 30, know what you want to do and can work towards it. Because the way I look at what I'm doing, and I'm sure what you're doing, you know, most people want to retire at 60. I want to do this until I drop dead. And I'm sure what you're doing the exact same thing. You're not looking for a retirement plan. I don't have
a retirement plan. I don't get a pension. I spend all my money I ever made into the dog sledding. But if I died tomorrow, I'm happy. So, and I just like, I don't want to.
But you have time is what I'm trying to say.
And you know, if I all of a sudden change my mind, I can go and do something else. So.
And the experience that you're gaining right now through all of this, through the travel, through the training of the dogs. Isn't there good dog breeders in Nova Scotia? That's what my mom said.
There's a lot of good dog breeders in Nova Scotia. Like you see a lot of good pets coming out here and stuff.
Levi's from Cape Breton.
And like I know we've got pets over the years that are great from different breeders and whatnot. It's just like, and it's the same thing. Like usually a good breeder is doing it because they just like having the dogs around. They like the pets, and like they like that they can make money off of what they enjoy.
Yeah.
So that obviously they're gonna just do that. Like they get to be with dogs, and then I'm sure it's hard to when they have to sell the puppies. Anytime I gotta let a dog go as a pet, like it's always really tough, but it's what you gotta do.
Yeah.
So
outside of all this, the biking, the breeding of the dogs, what about a hobby that you have, something outside? I know it consumes a lot of your life, but you must have another interest outside of it. You like sports?
Honestly, I played every sport till I was 19. Like
You're just
went on
sick
to
of it
play
now?
football. I've never followed organized sports. Never
No?
followed like hockey or anything like that. Hockey, football. I love watching football. I love watching hockey, but like I just like watching good plays. Like I'll
Yeah.
just sit there for the highlights and. Yeah, I've just that's never been something that I've been like, oh I hope my team wins or something like that. My dad's got a team, all my friends got teams.
Fantasy?
Like,
Nothing.
Just I just want to be successful at dog mushing. Like
Wow.
be good, have a good name in the industry, and get to a point where it's sustainable, so I can just keep doing it without having to kill myself in the off season working.
That's wicked.
Yeah. I
Just dog
can't,
mushing.
off the top of my head, I really, I've got things that I'll go and do. I'll try like a bunch of stuff. I like fishing, but I'm not passionate enough to go out and do it every day when it's
Yeah.
fishing season. I like hunting. I don't go out and hunt every day when it's hunting season, but I work with the dogs every single day because I love it. So
I feel like, do you like a good cigar?
nope.
You like a good whiskey?
I like whiskey,
What's your brand of whiskey?
the cheapest.
What a fucking answer. The
Yeah.
cheapest.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. The cheapest.
Yeah, I like good beer. Like my brother lives on the West Coast, and like he owns a barbecue restaurant.
What's it called?
Lil Ronnie's Backyard Barbecue.
Little Ronnie's Backyard
Right on
Barbecue.
Mackenzie Beach. And
Plug
he
away.
just started it. He spent a lot of money, all of his time, energy doing it. And he had a big transition too. He moved out west from Toronto, living there for like 10 years. Goes out. He's been out there for like just over a year.
Yeah.
Now he's got his own restaurant. His name's in the title, so it's definitely his.
Yeah.
And
Good food?
amazing. Best barbecue you can get.
I love barbecue.
Like probably in Canada, except for the people we learned from maybe. But yeah, and it's the same thing. He's not making a whole lot of money right now because he's just starting out, but I've never heard him happier. And it's the same thing. Like when we talk back and forth, it's just like we've each got our own things going on, and we're just, pumped for ourselves, pumped for each other, and we just try to motivate each other to keep going.
It's kind of interesting how you and your brother both learn something that you have to be taught by someone else. Barbecue, you have to learn tradition from people that have done it for years. Same with, I feel like what you do, you have to learn that. There's a lot of things.
You can start out, you can get a bunch of dogs and just give her, but you're going to be real shit at it, and you're going to miss out on a lot of like simple things. And I learned like dog care from the tour company I work for, my Megan, out in Lake Louise. And that's where I learned how to take care of dogs properly, make sure they get a good quality of life, good nutrition, all that stuff. Racing, that's where I really learned. My neighbor up north, Marcel, he just like, I don't know why. Maybe I brought over enough rum and sat down enough times, but he just taught me like everything he knew, and he fit it all into one season. And in one season I had a very like I was winning races, traveling around racing, being very successful. And it's just because he just told me like, this is how you train. This is what you look for in the dogs. Watch out for this. Don't worry about this. Make sure you do this. And I just took it, listened, and it worked really well. And then I've also worked at like, in total, probably like 5-6 different kennels. I always go to different kennels to learn. Maybe somebody does something a little different, even just the way their house is built or the way they have the dog like fenced or the type of harness they use or the sled they use. Like I like just seeing stuff, and I'm always open to changing. I don't just have it in my head like this is how you do it. And I think by having that ability to just adapt and like, say that, okay, that works better than what I'm doing, and not having like that ego in the way to just, I'm going to do it that way from now on. I think that's what will make you a lot more successful too.
It's very interesting to me how that 1 year of you saying you dog sledding, that 1 year and everything that you've learned, and then you just fell in love with the craft, and you say you want to do it for the rest of your life. It's funny how things like that work.
Yeah.
You go over to this guy's place, drink enough rum. He teaches you, the way of life to what you want to live, and then you just fall in love with it, and you're doing it to this day.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Keep it simple. Don't spend money where you don't need to, so that you have that extra money to be able to race and look after your dogs. And you know, you'll be able to do it. Just make it work. Don't go out of your means. Like, don't have 60 dogs to put out one team. You know, if you're only putting out one team, get a solid like 10, 12 dogs and just work with them, train them. So yeah.
All right, man, we're coming up on an hour here, so
awesome.
I appreciate you coming over.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Real cool life you live, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You too. I like this. I've been watching all the high buttons.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was really nice of you to let Tanner on too.
Let him on, man. That guy's, I've been wanting him to come on forever. That guy's busy. His brothers are going to be coming on next week.
Oh yeah, that'll be
next
more
Wednesday. Yeah,
probably.
It'll be a great time. Yeah, do you want to plug away? Say hi to any family, friends?
Yeah, just thanks a lot, everybody, for the support, because I know my parents especially just never telling me that I shouldn't do something when I come up with a crazy idea, because they are always crazy. Like a week ago, I had one plan, and then it all just changed within an hour yesterday, and they're like, yeah, that's great, you should take it. So now I'm moving out west on Saturday instead of January 1st. So thanks to my parents, thanks to my brother, my girlfriend, very supportive, Fiona, coming out west with me, traveling.
Oh, she's going with you?
Yeah, putting up with everything that I got to do.
Look at that.
And thanks to everybody that sponsored the team. You know, you can sponsor a dog individually and get updates on them and their training and stuff. And a few people have come on, and I just want to say that it makes a huge difference, because it's an expensive hobby and every little bit counts. So thanks to Maritime Mushing Supply, Marley, and Christian with Dog's Choice Raw Food. I just really appreciate it. So
unreal. All right. Well, once again, thanks for coming over, Coady. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Everyone listening, make sure to go to all of our social media outlets, iTunes, SoundCloud, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. You know what to do. Once again, I appreciate each and every one of you. We are out.